Walk with me into an old-growth forest. You look around and you see trees. You see oaks, pines, and maples standing tall, separated by yards of soil. They look like individuals. They look like competitors, fighting for the same sunlight, fighting for the same rain. But this is an illusion. If you were to dig down just a few inches into the soil, you would find the truth. You would find a white, spiderweb-like substance called mycelium. This is the wood wide web. It is a massive, underground fungal network that connects the roots of every tree in the forest. Through this web, the trees talk to each other. They trade. If a tree on the shady side of the forest is low on sugar, a tree in the sun sends it nutrients through the web. If a tree is attacked by beetles, it sends a chemical warning signal through the web to its neighbors so they can raise their defenses. The mushroom you see above ground is just the fruit. It is tiny. It is temporary. The mycelium below ground is the real creature. It is vast. It is ancient. It is the architect of the entire ecosystem. If you sever the web, the forest dies. The trees become isolated. They starve. They become fragile. Now, I want you to look at your wallet. You think your ideas about money are yours. You think your anxiety about inflation, your drive to hoard savings, and your fear of the future are modern problems caused by the news or the stock market. You are looking at the mushroom. You are ignoring the mycelium. You are trapped because you are operating in a financial system where the fruit, the mechanics of banking, profit, and trade, is visible. But the web, the philosophy that built it, has been severed. We are taught that modern economics began in Europe with thinkers like Adam Smith in 1776. We are taught about the invisible hand. But what if I told you that the roots go deeper? What if I told you that the true architects of your money mindset were not sitting in London or Edinburgh, but in Baghdad, Damascus, and Cordoba, hundreds of years earlier? These are the forgotten Muslim philosophers of the Golden Age, men like Al-Ghazali, Ibn Khaldun, and Ibn Taymiyyah. While Europe was sleeping in the Dark Ages, these men were mapping the mycelium of the human soul. They didn't just invent algebra and algorithms, they invented the moral framework of how we deal with value. But here is the tragedy, here is the trap. Over the centuries, we imported the tools they created, the checks, the contracts, the accounting, but we forgot the wisdom attached to them. We took the mushroom and killed the web. You feel exhausted today because you are practicing zombie economics. You are trying to build wealth using a system designed for flow, a core, Islamic economic concept, but you are using it for hoarding, a modern fear-based concept. Al-Ghazali, writing in the 11th century, warned us specifically about this. He said that money is like a mirror, it has no value itself, it only reflects value. When you try to hoard the mirror, or treat the mirror as the goal, you distort reality. You create a sickness in the soul. I spent 35 years in the corporate world watching this sickness. I saw men who had millions of dollars but felt completely impoverished. Why? Because they were like a tree that had cut itself off from the web. They had the resources, but they had lost the connection to the purpose of the resources. You are doing the same thing. You are obsessed with the fruit, the number in the bank account, the ROI, the crypto spike. But you have neglected the mycelium, the underlying philosophy of why money exists, how it should move, and what it does to your character. Because you have forgotten the architects, you are living in a building that you do not understand. And when the wind blows, when the recession hits, when the inflation spikes, you feel like the roof is caving in. You are scared because you are intellectually homeless. We need to dig up the soil. We need to find the roots again. Let's go back to the forest. What happens when you sever the mycelium? What happens when you cut the connection between the trees? The forest doesn't die immediately. For a while, the trees look fine. They still have leaves. They still stand tall. But slowly, the soil turns to dust. Without the network to share water, the weak trees die first. Then, without the network to signal danger, the beetles and the diseases move in. The strong trees, isolated and selfish, hoard their sugar, but they cannot stop the infestation. Eventually, the whole ecosystem collapses. It becomes a desert. This is exactly what has happened to our modern financial system. We severed the philosophical roots. We took the mechanics of the market, the buying, the selling, the banking, but we cut off the moral web that held it together. This is where the great thinker, Ibn Khaldun, enters the story. Writing in the 14th century, Ibn Khaldun is often called the father of economics. He understood something that Wall Street has forgotten. He taught that wealth is not just numbers, wealth is labor and cohesion. He coined the term asabiya. It translates roughly to social solidarity. It is the mycelium. He warned that when a civilization becomes obsessed with luxury, when it stops valuing the labor that builds things and starts valuing the hoarding of gold, the asabiya breaks. The tribe falls apart. When we forgot Ibn Khaldun, we built a modern economy based on a terrifying idea: rational self-interest. We told ourselves that if everyone is selfish, if everyone grabs as much sunlight as they can for their own tree, the forest will somehow be healthy. We were wrong. I saw the consequences of this lie during the 2008 financial crisis. I was working with a major firm at the time. I saw men who had spent their entire lives severing the roots. They packaged bad debt. They sold poison to their neighbors to make a quick profit. They thought they were being smart. They thought they were winning the game. But when the crash came, they realized too late that they were part of the same forest. When the weak trees fell, they dragged the strong trees down with them. The lack of asabiya destroyed the entire market. And you? You are feeling this crash in your own chest every day. You feel the hoarding sickness. Because the system has no moral root. You don't trust it. You don't trust the banks. You don't trust your employer. You don't trust the government. So, you act like an isolated tree. You hoard. You panic. You constantly feel that you do not have enough. Al-Ghazali warned us about this specific pain. He said that the desire for money is like drinking seawater. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Because we have removed the philosophical purpose of money, which is to facilitate justice and life, money has become a source of infinite anxiety. I have met billionaires in Singapore who are more anxious than taxi drivers in Kuala Lumpur. They have the fruit, but they have severed the root. They are terrified of losing what they have because they have no philosophy to explain why they have it. They are spiritually bankrupt while holding millions. This is the crash. It is not just a red arrow on a stock chart. The crash is the feeling of total isolation. It is the feeling that you are fighting a war against the world for resources instead of participating in a system of mutual survival. We are living in a dying forest. The soil is dry. The beetles are swarming. And unless we reconnect the web, unless we remember the wisdom of the architects, we are just waiting to fall. So how do we heal the forest? How do we reconnect our own roots to the mycelium? You cannot change the global banking system. That is too big. But you can change the ecosystem of your own wallet. You must stop being a zombie consumer and start being a philosophical investor. This means applying the wisdom of the forgotten architects to your 2026 financial decisions. It means moving from panic to purpose. Here are 3 steps to reconnect the web. Step 1. Treat money as blood, not stone. The Al-Ghazali rule. Al-Ghazali taught that money is like blood in the body. If it flows, it brings life. If it clots, hoarding, it brings death. In the modern world, we are obsessed with accumulation. We want the number in the bank to sit there and grow. But the philosophical investor focuses on circulation. This doesn't mean spending recklessly. It means shifting your assets from dead money, idle cash, losing value to inflation, to living money, investments that serve society. Don't just hoard cash under the mattress of a low-interest account. Invest in businesses. Invest in productive assets. When you buy a stock in a good company, you are giving that company blood to hire people, to build products, to solve problems. You are reconnecting to the web. You are becoming a source of flow, not a blockage. Step 2. Embrace risk sharing. Reject gambling. The Ibn Taymiyyah rule. The Islamic Golden Age economists despised gharar, excessive uncertainty, gambling. They believed that profit should come from risk sharing, not from tricking someone else. Look at your portfolio today. Are you gambling? Are you buying meme coins hoping a greater fool will buy them for more? That is severing the root. That is trying to extract sugar from the web without giving anything back. The philosophical investor seeks real economy assets. They buy things that exist in the physical world: real estate, Commodities. Companies with cash flow. If you cannot explain to a 10-year-old how your investment helps the world, don't buy it. That is the rule. If you build your wealth on real value, you sleep at night. If you build it on hype, you stare at the ceiling. Step 3. Define enough. The Quanah principle. The final step is the hardest. It is the cure for the seawater thirst. The ancients called it Quanah contentment. This is not about being poor, it is about defining the finish line. The modern economy is designed to keep the finish line moving. You get the Toyota, they show you the Mercedes. You get the Mercedes, they show you the Porsche. You are running a race that has no end. You must sit down with a pen and paper and define your enough number. I need X amount to feed my family, X amount for shelter, and X amount for freedom. Once you hit that number, anything extra is not for you. It is for the mycelium. It is for your community, your charity, your legacy. When you know where the finish line is, the anxiety stops. You stop running the rat race and start walking your own path. The mindset shift. I want you to leave this video with a new image in your head. Stop imagining yourself as a lone wolf fighting for scraps. Stop imagining yourself as an isolated tree fighting for sun. You are part of a lineage. You are part of a web. The architects Al-Ghazali, Ibn Khaldun, Seneca, Smith, they laid the foundation. They taught us that wealth is not a number, it is a responsibility. When you invest with wisdom, when you spend with purpose, and when you give with generosity, you are not just managing money, you are keeping the forest alive. Don't just be rich, be rooted. Move your mind first, the rest of your life follows.